My friend Elmer Zubiate sold his HVAC business, grew it to $50 million, and had a 12 multiple when he sold to private equity. And my friend Jeff sold his company at a multiple of 10, grew it to 8 figures, and now is advising other companies to be able to sell to private equity. My buddy Anthony runs a lawn care business, and he is at $5 million gross at almost a 20% margin, and also doing PE-like things. I get a lot of questions about what is my home service business worth? How does that work with PE? What if I want to be like PE and acquire? Where does the math and the money come from? In today's Marketing Mechanic episode, we are going to cover the math behind how PE works, and I think you'll find it's really easy, and it will demystify a lot of the things that you see where these guys have these huge exits stay to the end, and you'll see where you might be able to buy other companies, even if you've never done acquisitions before, for no money down, seller-based financing. Every week, Thursday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern, I release a new episode of The Marketing Mechanic. So if you like this, like, share, and subscribe. Let me know. What do you think? So let's say that you have a home services business and you are doing $5 million gross top line revenue. That's not profit. And a typical margin like we would typically see is 20%. So if you have 20%, then that means you have $1 million as your, let's just, for sake of simple examples, let's just call that EBITDA. I have a finance degree, believe it or not. EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. And if you don't have debt, if you have not borrowed money, that basically is your net income or your profit, right? So 5 million, 20% is the margin, 1 million is the EBITDA. And what you'll typically see is that when you are in this range of a couple million, one to like 2 or 3 million, you're typically going to get a 6x multiple. So that means that this company is worth 1 times 6. That's a $6 million valuation. So then what do you do to increase your valuation? Well, you could increase the gross, and let's say that you double the gross and everything else stayed the same, 20%, right? If you had 10 million, 20%, now you're at 2 million for the EBITDA, but this multiple changes. And this is the whole thing behind the Warren Buffett strategy. All the guys in PE, when I found this out a few years ago, I couldn't believe that this was the case. So literally, by increasing this EBITDA number, everything else being the same, you increase the multiple to maybe say like 8x. And now all of a sudden, this company is worth 2 times 8. I'm Asian, I'm good at math. You don't have to be good at math. ChatGPT can do the math. Now it's worth 16 million, right? So here's what private equity does. So when you hear about roll-ups, that means let's get a whole bunch of the same kind of company. So let's say we took 10 of these companies that were each doing 5 million, 20% EBITDA. We'll talk about how that can change and how EBITDA gets adjusted. I think realistically, most companies operate at about 15% because they could be more efficient if they wanted to, but then it's kind of like the PE hollow out, cutting brand, charging too much, not taking care of the customer just because it's not visible on the spreadsheet. But let's just say you have 10 of these companies. 10 of these companies means 50 million in top line, but no one cares about the top line. 20% margin. Remember, we buy up 10 of these companies. They're all doing exactly the same thing. We're not centralizing operations or marketing. We're not doing any kind of efficiencies that come from consolidation. Let's just say literally just 10 companies that are exactly the same. 10 landscaping companies, 10 HVAC companies, 10 roofing companies. Lance Bachman's doing this. Tommy's doing this in Garage Door, right? So 10 of these companies, 50 million gross, 20%, that flows down, simple math, to 25, can't see, even the Asian gets the math wrong. So 10 million, because it's 10 times that, right? 5 times 10, 1 times 10, 10 million EBITDA. Such a weird word, EBITDA. Now, instead of a 6 multiple, it might be a 12x multiple. So now the company is worth 120 million as the valuation. And you might think, but wait, they didn't add any extra value. We just took 10 of the exact same company, maybe in different markets and whatnot, put it under, like, don't even change the name, just not even changing the branding, but literally just because the holding company is bigger, it's worth more. Now, if you as the PE firm know that you can do this roll up, 10 of the same, now all of a sudden it's 120 million, then each of these companies is really worth 12 million. 120 divided by 10. So if you want to be fair in your PE, you approach this $5 million company and you say, look, based on these numbers, and you can shop it around. Obviously, you want multiple bidders when you put a deal out. What's fair is I'll give you a 6 multiple. Maybe I'll even give you a 7 multiple. So instead of 6 million, which is the fair number, maybe I'll sweeten the pot and I'll do 7 million and I'll do, half cash, half earnout. So some deals, lower price number, higher cash. Other deals, there's more strings, there's earnout. It's never just the price, right? You guys know that. So let's say, you shop it around. These guys are shopping it around, and it's 7 million, and we'll say it's 50% cash, and then 50% is equity, which can increase. And you have earnouts and other sorts of things that are like seller-based financing, where the part of the money, this money's up front, and then this other stuff comes out of the earnings of the company, right? Over 36 months, non-compete, all that kind of stuff, right? So if you bought 10 of these companies at 7 million, you would pay 70 million. But the value of this is 120. So the PE company says, look, I can go from 70 million to 120 by going out there and doing deal making. So if I'm Lance Bachman and I do roofing, I'll run the roofing process conference and run it even as a loss, because I'll have other companies and everyone knows, like, well, if you're in this range of $1 million EBITDA, it's probably like a 6. Maybe you're really efficient, or you're overcharging or whatever, and you have it at 25%, this goes up, right? There's other things to increase this valuation number, right? You increase the sales, you get more efficient. A lot of guys that are smaller, that are say 5 million or less, they will run it kind of like a lifestyle business, because they will have company cars, they will put things as a company expense, they'll overpay their wife or whatever to run administration, right? You understand these kinds of things, right? Which is a whole nother discussion. Like, if you can increase the EBITDA, right, you trim some of the fat here, more flows to the bottom line, gets multiplied by 6, whatnot, right? But the big thing I want you to see with PE is that when there is a larger overall net, this helps this number go bigger. So that's why Elmer, when he took it to 50 million, he was able to get a 12 EBITDA. That's why I think Jeff was able to get 10. I see a lot of folks that are getting, 4 to 7, depending on what that is. Crazy thing is that you probably are hearing like PE this and PE that, because the PE guys have not been able to put money in the public markets in real estate, so they have to move to home services, which causes all kinds of issues. As you guys already know, PPC, people are charging more, it's more sales driven, grandma's being sold replacement units when it's really just a $600 repair, right? Sell her the top of line thing because of the commission, because of the whole PE math, right? I'm not here to vilify PE. We have a lot of friends that are in PE. I'm more on the side of the home service business owner, because I think reputation, and I think that your installers, your technicians are actually, in some ways, more senior than the salespeople, more senior than the finance people, who don't really respect the operators because they just look at the spreadsheets. I'm a spreadsheet guy too, but I think that reputation, brand, all the stuff that we teach on this channel, even though it's not as easily measurable in this sort of way, there is some long-term value of reputation and brand, even though it's not on the balance sheet. It doesn't directly reflect in the income statement. That being said, what does this mean for you? So what are things that you are doing to be able to grow your business? Like through better marketing, through closing better, through making sure you answer the phone and service the customer and get more reviews and sell monthly warranties and other things to try to increase the lifetime value and increase this EBITDA number. So let's say that you see the PEs doing this and you understand their roll-up strategy is literally just to get a whole bunch in the same market, a whole bunch of HVAC companies, right? And then they profit off of this different. Even if they pay you or the fair number or they overpay you, they profit strictly because they're able to increase this number here, which is wild. Like when I first found that out, I'm like, this can't be legal. But it is. It's the Warren Buffett approach. So let's say you know that's true. Then what do? Well, you could say, I can take advantage of this myself. I don't have to have PE kind of money. I can say, so let's say I'm Anthony's Lawn Care, of which I own a little bit too. Full disclosure, I love to advise other companies on this because when we can help improve these numbers and then they sell or they acquire or there's some kind of liquidity event, I get a little piece. That's where I make all my money, by the way. It's not in selling consulting or like that was like 25 years ago, right? By the way, if you're good, if you're a performance-driven person, then you should always, if you're in that position, you should be able to consult for equity because now your interests are aligned with the clients that you advise instead of just like, why are you charging me this fee every month, right? That's an agency approach, which is fine. That's a good thing for a young person who wants to do an agency, right? But there's a game above that. Okay. So let's say you're Anthony's Lawn Care and you're at 5 million and you're running a 20% margin for $1 million EBITDA. You can say, well, I could find someone else who is maybe half my size. If they're more than half your size, then it's less of an acquisition and it's more of like mergers, right? Which is different. Or worse, like you're the little fish trying to swallow the big fish. So generally someone who's 20 to 30%, a third-ish of what you are. But let's just say for sake of simple math, you acquire someone who's 2 million gross, and let's say they operate at 20%. So then they're at 400K EBITDA. And you know that when they're smaller like this, the multiple is lower. So maybe the multiple is 4 times. So then that puts a valuation of 1.6. And let's say instead of like saying, buying a portion of the company or doing that kind of thing, you just want to buy it outright. And there's some amount of seller-based financing. Let's forget about that for a moment, right? Because there's creative math on how you do that instead of going to the bank or taking out a line of credit or all other things or financing out of your own sales. So let's say 1.6. So if you buy them for 1.6 and you are worth 6, because when you're the acquirer, you have to show them your numbers, just like dating. You each have to show each other where you're at to figure out what the fair valuation is. So now the company has 1 plus 0.4. It's at 1.4 EBITDA. And now the multiple, maybe that goes to 7, right? Because you add a little bit more, or maybe, let's just say, let's say it's 7. So that is that 9.8? Let's just say it's 10, right? Is that math right, Elias? So now the company, now the company's worth 10 million. So you've added $4 million of value strictly through this initial transaction where you've done 0 operational improvements. You've not even merged the balance sheets. You've added $4 million of equity and value strictly by acquiring another company. But then because you have efficiency, maybe this, because you have a shared call center, shared marketing, shared finance, shared central operations, administrative, maybe even your brand, maybe Anthony's brand is bigger than so-and-so landscaping. And we can leverage the ads that we have that are working. We can leverage our software. We can leverage all the things that we have, leverage our equipment financing. And we can squeeze maybe an extra 200K out of this. And maybe we can help them grow even better because most home service businesses, their marketing sucks, right? I mean, you guys know this, you could be a great electrician, a great roofer, a great technician, a great, pest control guy, great at all like that. I see this all the time. Like Richard McClure is a fantastic HVAC technician, literally worked on hot rods and understands, because as an HVAC guy, you're an electrician and you're a plumber and you're HVAC, you have to do all these things. But he's so charged the fair price or repair instead of replace because, whatever. He's not grown his business, as he knows, right? That's the trade-off there. So let's say we get an extra 200K in efficiency off of this. That's now 600K on top of this. Now you're looking at 1.6 times this multiple. And that is, what is that, 11.5 or something like that? 11.4? Something like that, right? 11.2? You do the math, right? It's worth an extra million and change, right? So from the base company, one acquisition, which made the firm 40% bigger, and then a little bit bigger because we squeezed efficiencies out. Now all of a sudden, the firm is worth 11.2. Now when you're 11.2, you can go buy another guy, let's just say for the sake of simple math, that is about 40% of the size of this company. Now you go out and buy a company that is at 4 million. And let's just say they're also operating at 20% margin. So they're at 800K EBITDA. And here maybe you pay them a multiple of 5, right? So then you value the firm at 4 million. And you pay them 4 million, which is the fair price for someone who is at this range. Or maybe, there's 5 EBITDA, because we said if you're a million EBITDA, then maybe it's a 6. I mean, it varies a little bit, but it's in that range, right? So if you pay them 4 million, now all of a sudden you have 1.6 of EBITDA. You're adding another 800. Now you're at 2.4. So 2.4, maybe that is multiplied by 8. And now you are at, carry the 3, 19.2. Is that the right math? I think so, right? Now the firm's worth almost 20 million, 19.2 million. You went from 6 million to 19.2 million through a stepwise acquisition where you acquired someone who was 40% of your size. That made you bigger. The bigger company can now acquire someone 40% of the size. And then you acquire another company, 40% of the size here, right? And then this number starts to expand out. And I was at DealCon, which is Tom Shipley's event, just 6 months ago. I've been there the last 3 times. I think he holds it twice a year. Tom Shipley runs DealCon, which is where you learn more about the numbers and the math behind M&A and due diligence and the lawyers and making sure everything is the legal, there's so many different pieces that have to tie together. And there are guys that I have met at that conference who will do 4, 5, or 6 of these in a year. Or maybe you just do 1 per year. And guys who are brand new that have done 2 or 3 deals, which is crazy. And what Tom and Matt Bodnar say is, which I didn't agree with until recently, but now I understand, it was me being ignorant, is that any business problem you can solve through acquisition. Think about that. Maybe it's a sales problem. You can hire another company that has a stronger sales team. Maybe you don't have enough working capital. Buy another company that's cash rich. Maybe like some of these older companies where the owner, they're older and they, most companies, they just exit. They don't exit. They just shut down. Like, what is it? 85% of companies, they just shut down. So the math of acquisition, of having something that they can pass on to their children, because often the children don't want to take over the family. We see this in funeral homes especially, right? Cody Jones, full disclosure, we advise him. He sold his funeral home, same kind of thing. These guys get old, kids don't want to take it over. So then he comes in and does this math, helps them sell, prepares them to sell to private equity, arranges the deal, right? And everyone wins. Because instead of getting nothing, which is what happens for most of these guys, these owners as they age out, now you actually are able to get something and be able to retire off of that, which I think is so cool. Because, you know, when you're 60 or 70, you're probably not going to be climbing on the roof or driving trucks around or whatnot. But most people, they put that off. They don't think about it. They're scared of the math. It's like putting off going to see the doctor. I mean, this is great, right? And it's funny because you could be an incredible plumber. You could be Sal Sciorda. You're a great plumber. You're scaling the stuff, hiring other great guys who are great plumbers, mentoring them. You know, they're moving up from journeyman all the way up to master plumbers, opening new locations. But when you understand the next level, which is marketing, and then the next level, which is M&A and deal making, you realize I can solve any problem I want if someone else has the brand, has the equipment, has the money, has whatever expertise. I can buy that company, but I have to make sure my company is set up properly so that when I buy them, and even if I don't have the money, I can do the seller-based financing, right? Which is what the majority of, you know, Roland Frazier, all these guys are teaching how to do that, which I think is incredible. And now the cool thing is that where we like to come in is we help with the marketing. So if we can show that there's growth here, if we can show that there is better efficiency because we're not wasting so many marketing dollars, all that goes to the bottom line. So if we save $30,000 a month because there was wasted PPC or whatnot, then that 30,000 times 12 is 360 times a 6 multiple. That's added $2 million of value to the bottom line. I mean, think about it, right? And then when the company's bigger, if we are able to grow this number by $1 million, now that's multiplied by 8 or multiplied by 12 or some other kind of number. So there's so many ways to increase the earnings, the net earnings that are under your umbrella because you grow organically, because you open up more locations. So our buddy Billy Doorman Klein is in Dallas. He's got Dallas East and Dallas West is basically 2 operating units. And then he'll go into San Antonio, go into Austin, go into other places. And so he can grow because he's operating in more service areas. He can acquire other companies. He can expand because he does doors. He can expand the windows. I mean, you could do the same thing too, right? You've got an HVAC company, or let's say you're Josh Roman and you do dumpster hauling, or sorry, dumpster rental. Then you can easily do junk removal, and you can do Christmas lights, and you can do other sorts of things that balance out the seasonality. So many ways to grow. So let's talk about what some of these are. So you know that you can expand to more service areas. That increases this top line number. You know that you can do ancillary services like related companies. So if you are the landscaping company and your crews are out there and they notice that the roof has hail damage, you can say, hey, you know, I know a guy. And it happens to be the sister company, right? Why not, right? Because now that lead is worth so much more. You paid all that money to acquire that lead through PPC or branding or radio, right? Now, why not squeeze more out of that? If you're a pool service company, then, and your guys are out en route, and every week they're going, like Nielsen Silva has 2,000 companies that are, 2,000 homeowners where his guys are out there every week servicing them on that route. They're going to notice things about the lawn. They're going to notice the garage door. You know, the bottom rubber is broken, or they're going to notice something else, right? And so now by partnering, I mean, you have like Milestone in Dallas where they have the plumbing and the roofing and the concrete flooring and like all these different companies that are together. You can also grow through acquisition because you buy other companies, provided that, you know, just like with dating, that you share the same values and the books are clean and all the due diligence, all those pieces, that works great. And then the final step is, which you can do one or any of these options, is you can exit to PE because there's always a bigger buyer. So over here, this PE company who say they've got, you know, 10 plumbing companies, they're gonna, it's crazy. They can exit out to a bigger player. There's always a bigger fish. So just think about where you are in your journey. Are you one guy at, $1 million top line, and maybe you're only netting 150,000 because it's just you and 2 trucks. Well, what do you need to do to get to that next level? Because if you can get a little bit bigger, you can increase that multiple. Let's say you are like most of the people we work with and you're in the 2 to 20 million range. Then what do you need to do to get to 120 million valuation, which means 10 million of earnings? Do you want to grow organically by opening more locations? Do you want to try to acquire some other guys out there, which Tom Shipley at DealCon and these other guys they know the process to get that done? Do you want to work straight with PE, where there's other guys that will advise you to get your company ready so that you have the maximum sale price? You have like all the books, all that stuff. It's funny because we see people when they get ready to sell their first company, their books are not in order, right? And we see that all the time. But maybe you want to get these things ready because you want to eventually look at selling, or you want to expand and buy someone else. Like oftentimes people that were thinking, well, I need to sell. Have you thought about the other way, that you could actually be the acquirer? Isn't that so cool? I'd love to hear, what do you guys think? I feel like my DMs in the last year have been nothing but like PE and margins, and like the PE guys saying, hey, look at this company, what do you think, right? And we'll investigate the marketing, we'll see what kind of efficiency we think we can get out of that, which is fine. We have a lot of friends in PE. But there's the home service guys where they are looking at getting their company ready for PE. They're looking at acquiring, they're looking at expanding in these other ways, and then they realize, wait a minute, so I could, if I'm a roofing company, I could expand my brand, but I could also acquire someone else who does roofing in another service area, or who does an ancillary service. So think about that. Love to hear, what do you think? And like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode of The Marketing Mechanic.